when I look at this fit, I think it's a great one because you're talking about a zone-based system that puts defenders on tracks, and then you just ask the running back to be a one-cut downhill runner. Michael Carter does that probably about as well as anybody in the draft. And so this could be one of those examples of a late-round pick outplaying his draft status because the scheme really marries the talent.
Yeah, and he's a player to me who is, he's just such a smart football player. Such a great pick for the Jets, I think, because he can play on 3 downs for you if you need. He's tough. He's strong. There's really not a lot of weaknesses. He's not as big as you want him to be. He's not as fast as you want him to be. But neither one of those areas of his game are debilitating. I mean, at all. He's big enough. He's fast enough. He's just a good, smart football player who's tough. I thought this is a really good pick. It's like I compared it in your fantasy football league when you are you're in your draft and you make a selection or somebody picks a player, a running back or whatever, and everyone says, "Oh man, what a steal! We totally forgot about that guy." Or that guy, yeah. I can't believe you got him there. That's kind of him. That's kind of Michael Carter for me in the 4th.
Yeah, fine. If you guys don't want to see Frank Gore carrying it 25 times a game like we did last year, boy, was that exciting. Fine. Michael Carter, I guess, can be it. By the way, you want to see something kind of wacky? I think Bucky especially will appreciate this, being a North Carolina alumnus. Here we go. The Jets have drafted 2 players named Michael Carter, one from North Carolina, the other, where's he from? I can't read that, Bucky. I got bad eyesight. Where's he from?
Oh, I can't either because one's a good guy and the other's a villain. And so I don't understand. One guy's wearing the right blue and the other guy has on some color that I can't make out.
There you go. Little Duke, North Carolina connection with the name Michael Carter. Let's go to another of those standout picks and someone we saw right here in our backyard, Bucky, in Los Angeles, and Amon-Ra St. Brown from USA. I know someone you've really been talking up throughout this draft process.
Hey, man, this is one of the best slot receivers in the draft. I'm surprised that it was still here at this point, but the Detroit Lions are getting a fantastic player because when I watch Amon-Ra play, he plays the position in a very natural manner. Outstanding route runner, terrific hands, tough, physical, dynamic with the ball in his hands. Once again, we talk about finding those hidden gems on day 3. He's a household name, but he's going to be a hidden gem for the Detroit Lions because he's going to be a big-time player for him.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot. He's a guy that it's hard to poke weaknesses in his game. You see some things that you say are kind of average about him, but you don't see a lot of true weaknesses. And he's just a pro. I thought he approached the game like a pro. When you watched him, he felt like you're watching a pro wide receiver. There's more talented wide receivers who you know are college wide receivers who need polish, and they got a chance to be really good. When you watched Amon-Ra play, you just saw a player who you felt like, yeah, this is, it looks like a pro receiver, and you could really project him as a pro. So his ability to win the ball in tight spaces is such a pro trait. And then his ability to maintain body control really on all 3 levels whenever he worked the field. I thought that was something really impressive. So I like this. I thought Detroit had a really sneaky good draft, and this is kind of the embodiment of it in day 3.
Yeah, and I'll just add this. Urban Meyer was on with the guys earlier, and he brought up when he was at Ohio State, it was easier to recruit guys from standout high school programs. You didn't have to kind of indoctrinate them into becoming Ohio State football players or Florida football players wherever he was coaching. And I don't get a chance to bring it up, Bucky, but you know where I'm going. Amon-Ra is from one of the most dominant football programs in high school football in modern day. And that dude was great in high school, but his best games every single season came against St. John Bosco. And that is number 1 and number 2 in the nation. And they would have absolute brawls. And Amon-Ra would get out of there with a kick return for a touchdown, with a huge grab in the final couple seconds to win the game. Like, that guy's just a baller. He is a gamer. He's a 4'5" guy, 6 foot, so maybe that's why he slipped, Bucky. But you know this. That guy has got winning traits.
Winning traits, money. And you alluding to what Urban Meyer talks about is one of the reasons why you should be attracted to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Ballers ball out, and they figure out a way to do it. And when they do it at the lower level, they do it in college. You can best believe they're also going to do it at the pros, barring injury. He's a baller.
All right, let's get to the running back position. Chubba Hubbard. Lance, why don't you get us started here and go into the Panthers?
Yeah, Chubba Hubbard, 2,000-yard rusher in 2019, and really this year didn't go as according to Hoyle for him. He was banged up a little bit. He had some issues up front in terms of his talent. You had some players out for a little bit. I just thought the offensive line wasn't nearly as good this year around. He's an outside zone back. He's got track speed. He was a sprinter coming out of high school. He's got good speed. He doesn't play to his time speed as much. Good vision. He's got subtle wiggle. And I thought it was maybe around early. But, you know, honestly, if you look at the 2019 tape, this is where he was drafted. I think he got drafted off of the 19 tape, and really not much was put into 2020 because by the end of the year, he wasn't even the best running back on his own team. So I think Matt Rule and his squad said, you know what, let's draft him off the 19 tape and let's go from there. Outside zone back, pure outside zone for me.
Yeah, you talk about pure outside zone. Matt Rule got an up close and personal look at it. And so sometimes we have these college coaches that move up to the pros, they still remember those college guys that gave them problems. I think this is a situation where the familiarity with Chubba Hubbard led the Panthers to make this selection.
All right, so there we go. We got a couple running backs and a wide receiver to get us started here following the action on day 3 as we close out the 2021 NFL Draft. Believe it or not, we got some quarterbacks. We're going to get into those next, as a matter of fact. Are they long-term answers? Could they be package players? We'll get into which direction the Saints went at quarterback, also the Colts, when we return here on Draft Today, presented by Verizon.
The big play, he comes up with different ways to make it.
Getting more than what I paid for. I ain't gotta say more. Doing big things, what I'm made for.
Clutch, chased. An underhanded flip into traffic. Are you kidding me?
A little more.
Ian Book, as he has done so many times before.
Get a little more. Going all the way up. Everything I do, man, need to be major. Let me get more.
Touchdown, Notre Dame! Ian Book!
All right, back on Draft Today, presented by Verizon. Bucky Brooks, Lance Zierlein. Let's get to it, guys. Certainly we know Sean Payton has a way with quarterbacks, what he's been able to do with Taysom Hill and the package that he put in while Drew Brees was his starter. What do you make of his selecting an athlete, I think is how you describe him, Bucky, at the position, and Ian Book, and what you can see him trying to do with him on the roster?
You know, look, Ian Book is really a fascinating one to watch because when I look at him, the all-time winningest quarterback at Notre Dame, he does have athletic traits. He does a great job of putting the ball into tight windows and open spaces, and he's intriguing. And I think when you have that kind of quarterback, you want to figure out, one, what is the upside and the potential? Two, is he athletic enough to merit a package? 3, when you work with him, okay, can he be a full-time starter? So I think this is a developmental player. I don't know if he's necessarily a package guy, but I do think you certainly want to explore that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's I don't think he's a package guy. He's not Taysom Hill. He's smaller than Taysom Hill. He's not as explosive. As a passer, I thought he, not a lot of pop in the arm and long windup. So he's undersized. I heard there was some heat on him in the 4th or 5th round, and that's where he ends up going. But honestly, I think it's the intangibles. I mean, this is an intangible draft for him, and we'll see how it pans out. Right now, I think you're throwing just a lot of players up against the wall, I think, if you're the Saints at quarterback, and just trying to figure out which direction you might want to go, at least, for quarterback 1 and quarterback 2. But found this a little bit strange to draft him in the 5th round, but I don't think he would have been there if you got him in the 6th, or rather in the 4th, but I don't think he would have been there in the 5th.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it is a question about what's going to happen at the quarterback position now that Drew Brees retired. Not the case in Indy, though, Bucky. We know that Carson Wentz, after the trade, is going to be the starter, and I would assume Frank Reich anticipates him being the starter for a long time, especially with that contract. So what do you make of the drafting of Sam Ehlinger?
It's about the intangible qualities. It's about the guy who has great football character, which Sam Ehlinger has. I think he's a little bit better than just a throwaway at the position. I think it'd be interesting to see him compete as a backup, but I love the toughness. I love the intangibles in terms of the leadership ability and what he brings to the table as a quarterback. We'll just need to see, is he athletic enough to do what he did at Texas, and can he throw it well enough to keep him on the field? Those things have to be worked out in training camp and in preseason games.
Yeah, another intangibles quarterback. And one thing to keep an eye on is that Sam gained a little extra weight. He was, did a lot of work in the weight room to fit into Tom Herman's offense that requires the quarterback to run a little more. But, really, honestly, I think he's a decent passer. He really struggled this year at times to do too much because his wide receiving core, he had, guys like Duvernay and Colin Johnson last year who were making catches and making plays, and he didn't have that this year. And you could see him really press at times and try to do too much. I think it's a pretty good value pick in the 6th round. He's not a starter in the NFL, in my estimation, but he does have a chance to be a solid backup because of that toughness. And I think there's maybe a little more meat on the bones as a passer in the league. So I'm with Bucky. I don't think this is a throwaway pick at all. I think he's got a chance to maybe become an average backup.
Now, look, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. There's a reason why, Rich Eisen celebrates the 199th selection every year. We keep bringing up Dak Prescott, who was selected in the 4th round. So while it is rare, it has happened. And we got 2 starters, including the Super Bowl champ, that are still doing it in the NFL, being drafted on day 3. All right, let's get to snap grades, Bucky and Lance. Snap grades presented by Verizon. Speaking of Dak and speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, let's get to Jabril Cox, the linebacker, former Bison, then transferred down to LSU. And Lance, why don't you get us started here? What you kind of make of that selection, and I guess what kind of grade you would give it?
Yeah, that's an A. That's an A. I'll tell you what, his tape was good at North Dakota State. He didn't fall off at all when he went to LSU. I thought at LSU he showed that same ability to play with the type of athleticism that you would expect in the SEC. You're talking about going from North Dakota State to the SEC. That is an unusual jump. And for a guy to show that he's able to do that athletically is really impressive. But then from a playing standpoint, and the ability, as you see in the highlight reels we have, he's a 2-level player. I mean, he can cover, he can get downhill into the backfield. I thought that was a really good pickup. And if you look at what Dallas is doing with the linebacker position, they're basically saying, hey, we're going to go get a bunch of guys that can run and make plays, and we'll go from there. We'll figure it out. But let's load this linebacker room up with guys who have athletic ability. And, well, there's a ton of it now in their room.
Yeah, there's a ton of it. And what I like about this is the pairing of Jabril Cox with Michael Parsons. One wrecks, the other destroys. Because you're talking about 2 athletic playmakers. And now with Parsons being the more physical forcer, and then you have the guy that can run around, they basically remade their linebacker core. So I would go easy on those Jalen Smith and Leighton Van Ness jerseys. Yeah. You may not be in those jerseys for long if you're one of the kids. So I'm trying to save you a little money. Going to the NFL shop, you might want to move those aside and make sure you get the new and improved jerseys.
I would say to whomever put together our highlight package, not cool, putting up the should have been chest bump where he whiffed and just went crashing to the turf. We're going to have to scoop that one out of the Jabril Cox highlight package. All right, that was Snap Grades presented by Verizon. All right, individuals, of course, it is a day to celebrate the individual, but it's also a day to celebrate the franchise, the teams that we believe did great. We're going to get into teams which draft class we really appreciate, including, well, the Cleveland Browns, next. All right, back on Draft Today, presented by Verizon. The 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds are now in the books, and that means the 2021 NFL Draft is in the books. It would be the first one that Urban Meyer would preside over as the new sort of head coach as well as CEO. I know Trent Baalke's there, but we kind of know that it's Urban's show. The first draft that he's run, and Lance, I'll let you get started here. He drafts Luke Farrell, his former tight end, out of Ohio State, and just kind of the idea of familiarity for guys, especially when they just get started in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one because we got some personal experience. I remember when my dad was with Butch Davis with the Cleveland Browns in his first NFL coaching gig, and Butch had just come over from Miami, and a lot of his draft was driven by his relationship with players he was familiar with. And that wasn't always a good thing. I'll give you an example. They had made a decision to draft Richard Seymour the night before the draft when the draft was going to be on a Saturday and a Sunday. And when they came back to the building, Gerard Big Money Warren was the pick because he had gone to camps with Butch Davis there with the Miami Hurricane. Well, that was, clearly a huge mistake as Richard Seymour ended up being the much better player. So Luke Farrell here, we're talking about a 5th-round pick. I like Luke Farrell. He's kind of he's not a pure Y, he's not a pure F. He's a guy who looks like a Y but needs to get a lot better as a run blocker. You see him a lot of times playing in that wing spot that they've had, and a lot of those guys have gone to the pros. But I think this pick is interesting because it's basically a need selection for Jacksonville. And Urban Meyer said, I'm going with the guy that I'm familiar with. And I thought it might be Pat Freiermuth previously because the tight ends coach from Penn State came over and joined Urban's staff. But obviously they wanted to address other positions, and he ended up going with the guy who he recruited. And so obviously he knows Luke Farrell inside and out.
I think it's interesting. Familiarity is everything. I think the one thing that we'll have to talk about with Urban Meyer, if you notice very, very early, he drafted a lot of 4- and 5-star recruits that have made their way to the league. I don't think it's a coincidence. When you're a program builder who has been at Florida and Ohio State, You're not going to spend a whole lot of time looking at these smaller schools. You're getting big-time players from big-time schools. I think that was the theme when you go back and look at the Jaguars draft under Urban Meyer.
Well, tomorrow we will have our draft grades show. Every single franchise, all 32 from the AFC and NFC, will get graded on all of their selections. So the Jaguars will be part of that. But right now, how about a little taste of that, Bucky and Lance? We all seem to agree that the Browns had a heck of a draft here in 2021 with their selections. You see the 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and then one each in the 1, 2, and 3 rounds. Lance, get us started. What do you like about what the Browns were able to do here in the draft?
Well, working backward, loved Felton there in the 6th round. I think Felton has a chance to really outplay his draft slotting there. But for me, it's 1 and 2. I mean, Owusu-Koramoah, I truly believe is going to be a high-impact player, and I think he's just on the way up. I mean, he hasn't even touched his potential, in my estimation, a really explosive player. And then Newsome gives them a lot of, he's kind of a cornerback who can play a variety of different coverages, but he fits nicely with the cover 2, cover 3 looks, the quarters coverage. He's very aggressive in the air, and he's just a competitive ball hawk, which is something I really like over there in Cleveland. It's something that they've really needed on the back end. So for me, I like those first 2, and I like the 6th pick, and I like getting players who I think are high impact players, and I think that's definitely what they did with their first 2 selections.
Look, I'll button it up by talking about Lance. The first 2 picks are outstanding because those guys were both rated as first rounders. But the 3rd pick that they got, Anthony Schwartz, flat out burner.
Speed.
When you go back and look at his track exploits as a kid, he is a big time burner, 4.25 or 6 whenever he had his pro day. You put that kind of speed on the outside with that running game, look out. Could be a lot of beep beep because he's going to be gone.
Yeah, I want to just jump in. I thought watching him on tape, honestly, I thought they didn't use him well. I thought Auburn really did a disservice. Look, he didn't have the greatest hands in the world, but he's a guy you just get the ball in his hands and then let him take off. And I didn't love the way Auburn got the ball to him. I still think there's a chance that he's a much better pro player than he is a college player. That's a very fair point about his speed. He's the fastest guy in college football.
And then just selfishly, so I can get the 8 claps going, you mentioned it briefly there, Lance, but Demetric Felton, I think, is going to probably surprise some folks because I would imagine he's probably going to go wide receiver full-time, I guess athlete weapon, however you want to describe him, but you kind of see what they do with like Ayuk and Samuel in San Francisco, and you kind of think about what McVay does and that sort of offense, and you get guys in motion right on those jet sweeps and stuff. Felton's got good hands, man. He's listed as a running back, but Buck, I don't think that's what he is in the NFL. I mean, especially since they got, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt there. So I just envision them probably getting creative and using him. And, man, he's just so good with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, excellent playmaker with the ball in his hands. I think when you look at the influence of the San Francisco 49ers success with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, you see more teams trying to find wing-back types, those half running back, half wide receiver types. Felton falls into that category.
Yeah. All right, let's get to
Nyheim Hines also is another guy. He didn't have Nyheim Hines' speed, the same kind of player.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, I mean, I think we said it right yesterday or the day before. It used to be, he's a tweener. Now he's a hybrid. I think get people excited. So let's get to pro comparisons. And Bucky, why don't you get us going on pro comparisons presented by Lowe's? And we're going to go with Tylan Wallace here.
Man, Tylan Wallace is a playmaker from Oklahoma State that reminds me a lot of a kid that played at Oklahoma, Kenny Stills. When you look at Tylan Wallace, the best part of his game, he can take it downtown and he can win the 50-50 ball. Pretty clean route runner, but very competitive on the perimeter. He is someone that you just want to throw the ball up to and let him have a chance. And when I look at Kenny Stills from the moment he stepped into the league, first with the New Orleans Saints, he could make plays. Tylan Wallace is a playmaker. Looking forward to seeing him take advantage of the one-on-one coverage that he'll see when he's with the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, that is Pro Comparisons presented by Lowe's. And the Ravens doing some damage at the wide receiver position in the draft. When we return, we are going to break down more franchises, a couple of the other teams that we like top to bottom, middle included. Get deeper into a couple AFC squads when we return here on Draft Today, presented by Verizon. Time now for Best Picks, presented by Microsoft Teams. How about a look at the draft selection square room at NFL headquarters in New York City, where every club's pick from today's round was submitted via Microsoft Teams. Our favorite picks from day 3. Lance, get us started. Who do you love?
Oh, man, I love Cornell Powell. I thought the Chiefs got a good one. He's 5th-round pick. You know, he's a one-year starter, basically, at Clemson. Came in as a highly regarded prospect and then just got behind a really deep wide receiving core at Clemson. And instead of transferring out, instead of complaining, he humbled himself. He got better. He stuck with it. And I thought you could really see the work that he put in when you watched him on tape this year. He's got great body control, very strong hands, wins contested catches, and I think he's a really under the radar selection there in the 5th round, because to me he has the type of game that could lend itself to becoming a wide receiver 3, and I think that's good value in the 5th round. But talented player who overcame some adversity in terms of playing time at a major school and ended up making a big difference this year. Bucky, what do you got?
I'm gonna go with Chris Rump from Duke. Chris Rump, the son of a coach, and I think you see that play out. Picked by the Chargers. Man, I just think about all of the technical guys that they have, with Joey Bosa being able to go through there and show him how to work his hands. He is a guy that certainly flashed. You watched him against Miami, dominates the game off the edge. Even though he's a little slender, man, the hand skills combined with the athleticism and the natural fluidity, this is a guy that could be a big-time sack artist at the next level.
We'll get to the Chargers, by the way, as a team in just a moment. I'll cap it out with someone who opted out in 2020. And I think had Jay Tufele played in 2020, you probably would have seen him go on day 2. And I think even still, we probably thought he would have gone on day 2. Instead, he goes with the first pick of day 3 to the Jags, the first pick of the 4th round. And this is someone who was USC's back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year. He was all Pac-12. I mean, he's big. He gets upfield in a hurry. This is someone who's got to scoop and score. So, you know, for being a 300-plus pounder, he can really move. And you put him in the middle. You talk about special teams, right? He's got a blocked field goal. It was actually, you guys know, that game against Washington State saved the game, as a matter of fact. There's the scoop and scrum. And look at that big guy move. That's 45 yards right there from a 300-pounder. So absolutely love this selection in the 4th round.
We're just going to let that Duke selection from Bucky, is that just going to sit there? We're not going to do anything with that?
Listen, that's why I laid out there. I figured you could pick that up. I already got him on the Michael Carter's with the thing. I figure it was up to you, Lance, to make sure we noticed that Rump, a Duke guy, being celebrated by a Tar Heel.
Well, listen, I know Bucky has loved Rump from the very beginning, and I have too. I think it's a great pick also. I just find it curious if Bucky's kind of softening.
Look, he's
here.
a big guy. He's the bigger man than
Hey, look,
some.
man, I'm trying to be professional. I'm trying to make sure that I give my flowers to those who are deserving of it. So I'm giving Rump his flowers, even though he decided to go to the wrong university.
All right, that was Best Picks presented by Microsoft Teams. And you know what? We'll get to Rump in a second, but let's start with the Jets. And again, they get their quarterback of the future after trading Sam Darnold to the Panthers and Zach Wilson. But Lance, get us started. Just top to bottom, what you liked about what the Jets were able to do.
It's got a bunch of football players. I mean, Zach Wilson, we know about the upside, but Elijah Vera-Tucker, they traded up to get him. They maneuvered. Elijah Moore, really, really good football character. Tough guy, is going to be a starter day 1. Michael Carter, we already talked about him. And when you watch Elijah Vera-Tucker, one of the things I really like about him is that he is a guard or a tackle. Now, I wouldn't have said that before this last year, but he was able to step out to left tackle and blow people away with his tackle skills. So even though the arms are a little bit shorter, I still think there's a chance that he could end up playing some right tackle for the Jets opposite Mekhi Becton on that left side. So keep an eye on him. Has Pro Bowl potential at guard and definitely has starting potential at right tackle in the future. That was just a fantastic addition. And then, of course, Elijah Moore, who we've talked so much about, another guy that I think really improves their football character and competitive spirit on that Jets team.
Yeah, I know somewhere Sam Darnold is down in San Clemente, and he's looking at the Jets, and he's trying not to pay attention, but he's looking around like, oh, now you want to upgrade the team around the quarterback? Now you want to give a quarterback some weapons? You want to beef up the offensive line? Because Zach Wilson has all the things that you need, the comforts of home. I know he feels like he's probably staying in a luxurious hotel because he has the big guy in front of him providing excellent pass protection in Elijah Vera Tucker. He has a playmaker in Elijah Moore that is out there getting open. And then he has a running back behind him in Michael Carter. Yeah, I know Sam Darnold's over there throwing the phone and burning up all of his Jet stuff because they've given Zach Wilson all of the stuff that he used to beg for 3 years in New York.
All right, Jets, the Browns we did earlier. Let's get a look here at the Chargers draft class. And if you're not following the Chargers social media feeds, they're some of the best out there. Megan does a heck of a job. And she had a photo. It was actually a cartoon, and it said best available and need. And it was two separate buttons, and the fingers were pushing both. Talk about their first two picks, and it seems like, Bucky, that's exactly what lined up with Slater and Samuel. Not only were they filling needs, but they looked like the best players available on the board at the time they made those picks.
Okay, here's what I'll say about this, Money. We've been doing this for a long time. There are times where your draft board lines up exactly with the needs, and it comes from grading players at the appropriate value. And when you get a Rashawn Slater, who we all talk about maybe being a top 10 pick, a starting caliber tackle, guard, wherever you want to play him, he's there. The Chargers just sit there and wait. They don't have to move. He falls right to them. They get a starter player. Asante Samuel Jr., who is a perfect fit for what Brandon Staley traditionally likes to do. Let those guys play off. Let them see the quarterback because that's how you get turnovers and interceptions. And so it lined up perfectly. Hats off to their scouts for making sure that they graded the players for what they were. And then hats off to Tom Telesco for pulling the trigger when those guys were available.
I think they're going to get a high grade from me when we do our draft grades because I think what they ended up doing with the Chargers is putting together a draft board where everyone is going to make the team. I was really impressed with just how solid this was with really good football players. We talked about Rumpf, but even a guy like Nick Neiman, who they grabbed in the 6th round, and Larry Roundtree, running back out of Missouri, who really had a great bounce back year this year. You know, you got two guys who I think have a lot of potential to bolster the depth of the Chargers. And for a team that had so many, I have to tell you this, Money, so many close losses last year, just fortifying, you know, the starters and then building depth on your team with a guy like Nick Neiman, who everyone said, who's this? Some Iowa linebacker. Let me tell you, he's got a chance to be a stud on special teams. Those little moves like that can turn those losses into wins and can, you know, from having an early draft pick, all of a sudden you got to pick in the 20s because you're in the playoffs. So I thought the world of what the Chargers did.
Yeah, you mentioned special teams, and I mean, my gosh, this was the worst special teams unit, not just in the league last year, but historically bad, not just in missed field goals and block punts, but just coverage, opposing starting field position. It was brutal. And I think you see the back end, a lot of those players are going to contribute on special teams. And also just quickly, I think Josh Palmer, oh, there it is. That's what they put together. You see the tweet from the Chargers: best player available, position need, bang, able to knock him out. And just quickly, I want to mention Josh Palmer because it seemed like, and Bucky and Lance, you can weigh in on this. You talked about, you know, Rumpf a moment ago, Bucky, learning from Joey Bosa. The idea that this size, just the sweet route running skills that he has, being able to learn from Keenan Allen, I think is going to do wonders for that guy.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely going to be able to do wonders, not only from Keenan Allen, but watching Michael Williams and those guys go to work. And so this is a team that we know is a sleeping giant. We were excited about the quarterback. The only thing the Chargers have done, they've upped the ante when it comes to excitement level because this team looks, man, they look ready to go. They look ready to compete in the AFC West.
All right, and that's the Chargers and the Jets as we get a look at entire draft classes. Remember, that's just a taste. We're going to do that all day tomorrow, a full hour. That'll be on NFL Network at 5 p.m. as a matter of fact. So be sure to check in for that as Bucky and Lance going to get to work grading all these classes as the 2021 NFL Draft just concluded. When we come back, we're going to put a cap on the draft. Takeaways from the 2021 Draft. We'll do that next year as it is Draft Today presented by Verizon. If you want to know when your favorite team will take the field in 2021 or when this weekend's draft picks are going to make their debuts, you'll find out in just a few days. The NFL will release its 2021 schedule. The whole thing going to be revealed on Wednesday, May 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network and ESPN. All right, let's cap the draft. It is our cap on the draft presented by New Era. Let's get one final takeaway here, Bucky. Lance, Bucky, why don't you get us started?
If you ever doubted if the NFL was a quarterback-driven league, this draft showed you. Going all the way back, just thinking about the quarterbacks flying off the board. Early and often, those guys came off 1, 2, 3. We saw the Bears go up to get Justin Fields. Mac Jones lands with the New England Patriots. But then after that, days 2 and 3, we saw quarterbacks continue to come off the board. I think teams always realize that if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. We saw that come to fruition in this draft with the picks that were made.
Lance?
For me, it's the Tyreek effect. I mean, you look at this wide receiver. We just had a wide receiver where a guy is 166 pounds and another one who's 5'9.5". They both went inside the top 10. Then you had 3 wide receivers going to second round. One, Dwayne Askridge, is 5'9". Rondell Moore is even shorter than that. And then you had Tutu Atwell, who weighed 149 at a combine recheck at his athletic, or rather medical combine. It was 149 pounds. Guys, size does not matter as much anymore in the NFL as speed. If you are really, really fast, you're going to get drafted. And the standards, the stringent standards that we've seen in the past for wide receivers, it's over now. It's a wrap, because if you can really run and get open, teams are going to covet you and they're going to draft you, and they're not waiting until the 5th or 6th round.
I'll finish with NFL head coaches just like us. We saw it last year when we got a peek into general managers' homes and head coaches' homes, right? There's kids running around. There's dogs sitting at kitchen tables. Well, we got another taste of it again this year with the 4th-round pick of the Panthers when Matt Rule shared that his wife Julie sent him a text. Remember, Matt used to be a coach at Baylor. They used to have to play Oklahoma State. Chubba Hubbard destroyed them a couple years ago. So Matt told Chubba this story, actually, when he was on the call with him, said, you know, my wife Julie sent a text and said, you're not coming home if you don't draft Chubba. So I got to draft Chubba. So it turns out, doesn't matter if you're a head coach, a general manager, when a wife says something and says, you ain't coming home unless this happens, we're all the same, man. You had to make it happen. So I'd love to see that we're all living by the same, pardon the pun, rules. Oh, yeah. All right, that's going to be Cap on the draft for Bucky Brooks and Lance Zierlein. Been a great last couple days. What an awesome draft experience it was in 2021 out there on the banks of Lake Erie in Cleveland. We're going to see you tomorrow because we're dishing out grades. Lance and Bucky going to do all 32 teams. Each team, every player going to be graded 3 p.m. Eastern on NFL.com and YouTube, and then 6 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network.